I don't think anything lasts forever, but that's not the question. I'm like, is $56 a good price for this stock? Yeah, mother. I think
I would buy it and then sell it quickly.
Hello and welcome back to Gamified 157. This is where gaming people talk about the games industry and video games. Up first, marketing expert who managed $100 million budget at Twitch Prime and now the founder of Mako.ai. It is Volatile Tony V.
Hey, thanks for having me, Volatile Tony V. Excited to be here, boys. Woo!
Good to have you back, dude. Up next is the indie-obsessed advocate, business development specialist, and creator of Game Credits, Will Spangler.
Thank you, Sam, for letting me out of gamified prison. I'm very happy to be back, and I'll promise I'll be good this week.
Good to have you back, buddy. Up next, he's the multi-time founder and co-creator of the #1 NFT trading card game of all time. It's the Prince of Parallel, the most feared movie critic in Canada. It's Kohji Nagata.
Hey, thanks again for having me, Sam. I feel like every time you mention the #1 NFT card game, that's just like in the land of the blind, the man with one eye is king. You know what I'm saying? So it makes me feel a little bit weird.
The sword that cuts both ways. Up next, this man is the bouncer at the entrance of Club Penguin. He went from 14 years at Disney now advising Griffin gaming partners. It is charismatic Chris Heatherley.
Well, hello.
Hello, indeed. Up next, from wrangling Angry Birds at Rovio to juggling runes at Jagex, he's the founder of Warp Chain and game publisher for Unique Games. It is Matthew Buxton.
Hey, everyone. And it's good to be back. And it's always good to have the best Web3 game. It's like having the tallest midget. We're gonna win.
I appreciate that. Up next, he wrangled teenagers coveting Fortnite fame at Soar Esports. Now he's the DGen designer at the Digital Collectors Club. It's Gnoc.
I had a quip, but the combination of Chris's little spin around and Buxton's millennial pause before he gave the answer broke my brain. I'm happy to be here. Let's get 157 on the road.
Let's do it. And on today's episode, we got the Stop Killing Games regulation. Roblox safety pivot. State of Decay is finally revealing their actual games, surviving games in North America, Studio AI automation, and Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat. Up first, we got what's the word for the Stop Killing Games movement. Stop Killing Games began as a consumer backlash campaign after Ubisoft shut down The Crew, but it's starting to look a lot bigger than that. The real question now is whether regulators are beginning to agree that if players buy a game, publishers should not be able to race it with no real end of life plan. Supporters say this is basic consumer protection, and that if a shutdown planning is built in early, then the cost is manageable. The industry side says it's far more complicated because of back-end tech, licensing, security, legal risk, etc. So this is no longer gamer grievances. It may be a real business model conversation. As we saw, there was a EU parliamentary discussion that took place after 1.2 million validated signatures, and now it's becoming a lot more real. What's the word for Stop Killing Games? Everybody give me your word, and then we'll dive into your actual take. Tony, I'm starting with you.
Insanity.
Education.
Terrible.
Misguided.
Fictional.
Reap, as in sow.
I like that. Wills, let's kick off with you, man.
Look, I understand, and I know that there's a bunch of people on this call who have been in the industry and are going to tell me 100 reasons why this is the dumbest thing to come out of gamers' mouths for the last 30 years, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that. The implementation sounds awful. The costs sound awful. It sounds very complex. Making games already more difficult doesn't seem like a great idea for anyone. But to say that this is like unjustified, I think is unfair. I think that, for so long, for the last sort of 10, 15 years, this whole live service, free to play, never own your games, always, be at the behest of whatever the next kind of up and coming thing is for what that experience is going to be and how you're going to be able to interact with it, has pissed a lot of people off. And I think it's a lot of the counter arguments for why this isn't feasible has a lot to do with the way that we think about making games now, where everything has to be live service, where everything has to be plugged into 18 different back-end services and have all this sort of chat moderation. A lot of people don't give a shit about that. And that, I think, is the core of this movement, is the people who don't want their games to be all this extra crazy stuff and these massive $100 million AAA projects. They just want to have these much smaller, more indie experiences. And look, do I know what this is going to look like in, its actual form and whether it's going to be feasible? No. But I think that this is just another tick on the side of, indie games are going to be easier to make, easier to push out, and be much better received by the audiences than AAA games will be in the next sort of 5 to 10 years.
Tony, I'm sending it to you in the chat. You said I have a take about Will's incredible entitlement.
Indeed. No, so I actually agree with 90% of what you said, and then I think 10% was just wow baby talk. But I think the 99% or the 90% is yeah, I agree that people will likely vote with their dollars and buy more indie games. You've heard me talk about that on the show, for the last couple of times I've been on here. I think that smaller, less giant budget games that frankly require live service to exist are going to exist. I think that there are going to just be fewer of those because of many reasons, including the way that people consume video games. I think that is an entirely different conversation than should we regulate live services video games. Of all the problems to solve in the world, boys, that is not where I want my government, any governing body focused is chasing predators in Roblox. Great. Getting pedophiles off Facebook. Awesome. Making sure that Hazel has the fucking pink unicorn that I bought her in Roblox 2 years ago. That is insane to me that there's some senator that might spend even 2 seconds or whatever a French senator is thinking about that for even 2 seconds is that's an appropriate use of time is just wild to me, right? Don't play the games. If that's not a valid form of entertainment to you, then don't play the games. But don't go advocate and waste valuable government resources at a time when frankly the world's falling apart to argue about whether or not you should be able to keep your Sword of a Thousand Truths for 5 years instead of 10 years, right? Just go play Assassin's Creed. The game exists. Ubisoft will be super happy for you to go play that single player narrative driven game, or the people from Peak. But I don't know. I see Gnoc shaking his head, but I just can't believe that this is this. I want to hear someone tell me why this is a valid use of resources from people that are in regulatory bodies.
It does seem like there's a lot of gray lines that would need to be figured out if they actually do implement something here. What do we do with a free to play mobile game that you've spent $8,000 in? Do you need to be able to download that and play it offline in order to appease this? Chris Heatherley, I'm going to you.
Dun, dun, dun. Exactly. They're not thinking through what's really required here. I mean, look, I obviously you guys know that I could have a huge libertarian rant here about how this is, government nanny state, government overreach, and so I'll spare you that lecture. But I think I'm very sympathetic with the goal, right? The shutdown of Club Penguin is a trauma on my life, right? And so I wish that there had been a way to keep that alive. And the fan community has kept it alive with private servers, but Disney goes around and shuts them down every now and then. Sometimes rightfully so, because it gets full of pedophiles and people who are not good people, or they're running it for scams. But so I'm sympathetic to the idea of how do these games live beyond the creator or when the companies are done with them. But I just think it has to be done by the market. I just don't think people realize how technically complicated it is to take especially live services games, and a lot of these games that are dependent on third-party services that aren't even our services that we own that we can stand up. Some of these games are just not going to work. Some of these shooters and things that rely on hosted multiplayer servers. Now, could you build it in a way that a third party could run the server? You might be able to, but to say you can never launch a video game or you're going to get fined or sued to death if you don't build this into your architecture. I just think it's going to make it games even less investable than they are today. And we're already in a really rough place as an industry.
Yeah, real quick to double click on that, Chris, and then I'm going to Kohji and Matthew. Do you think that this would be like the final nail in the coffin of being a game developer in Europe, which is already notoriously hard at this point?
Yeah. I mean, Europe doesn't. I mean, Europe has a few AAA studios. They have, I guess, Eastern Europe. They have, a fair number, but they've got, UK's. Well, UK wouldn't be under this, so it wouldn't apply to UK. But there's a lot of these AAA studios have left Europe anyway. Except for they've gone to, there's a fair number in Eastern Europe. A lot of Europe is mobile free to play, though, was the point I was going to make. Like Finland, some of the Nordic markets, like entirely mobile free to play, and there's just no way to make those offline games.
Kohji, I'm going to you. Remind me what your word was, and then give us your take.
I don't even remember, something like fictional or delusional or something along those lines. I think it's just crazy to draw a line here. I mean, I've said it many times on many shows. We're making toys for people, right? And and we should allow people to play with the toys how they want, but we should also be allowed to make them the way that we want them. And to Tony's point, people can vote with their dollars. And I say this as somebody who mainly plays indie games and hates the idea of buying things in online games that could disappear. Like I'm on the side of, that's how things ought to be, but I'm also suggesting that people should be allowed to make games however they want. And if that's fun to you, then you should be allowed to engage with it. The thing here is, like, I know that this is like a slippery slope sort of situation, but like, why are we pointing fingers at games? My car right now, if I want to like remote start it or unlock it using my phone, I have to pay them like $150 a year. And I bought the car, like I'm not even leasing it. I own it. And it's like crazy where we as consumers or as regulatory bodies or whatever are willing to like chase things down or not. And I think games is a very silly place to sort of kick this off. There would be much more useful legislation in adjacent areas, I think, that would help the greater good.
All right, Gnoc, let's go to you.
All right. I'm going to need some audience participation here for a second. Put your hand up. You don't need to speak. Just put your hand up if you've purchased the game on Steam. If you're part of this team and this group and you've purchased a game on Steam. All right. My word was education. And 54% of American adults read below a 6th grade level. Evidently, most of this panel doesn't read at all, because the answer is none of the panelists have purchased a game on Steam. You don't purchase anything on Steam except for a license to own that particular game. So here's the issue, right? Fundamentally, Stop Killing Games is something that has been blown wildly out of proportion from its intended goal, as stated by Ross himself, who did speak in front of the European Parliament. I believe that was last week. April 16th was the date. He walked through his proposal. He walked through the issue with it. And the core of the issue stems from one or two core features. The first is around the crew and what happened with the crew. The crew, yes, had a multiplayer component, but it was fundamentally a single player game with a 20-hour story component. In order to play that single player experience, you had to ping Ubisoft's service. So when Ubisoft decided we are no longer going to support the online multiplayer portion of that game, anybody who purchased a license for that title was no longer able to play the single player experience. There is no fundamentally technical reason why that is impossible for that user to play the single play experience. And this is the core of it. It is not independent of AAA or indie. It isn't tied to one type of developer or the other. The goal here is simply, if you are building a game, you should have an end of life plan for that game. If you are building a game and you are positioning it as a purchase, as a game that you own with a physical copy, it should have an end of life game. And if you don't want it to be displayed as a physical copy, then tell us out front. You are purchasing a license. You are not buying the game. But that's not the language that game developers move forward with. They move forward with buy the game, own the experience. He's a physical copy. And it makes it feel like you are buying a product that you will own, much like when you bought a product 40 years ago for your SNES and you own that device and you can still go and play that game. It's a fundamentally different argument than what people are hearing. People are hearing, oh, if Call of Duty, the game is dead, what, they have to support servers indefinitely? That's not what they're saying. And there's even legislation or proposed legislation within the bill that says if it is technically infeasible, if there are licensing issues or IP issues, for example, if you use a leveraged piece of music, there are outs for developers so they don't have to support this end of life plan. Ross, in his own statement, has said, we are open to any solution at all that gives an end of life plan for video games. Splitgate is a game that has launched recently that has demonstrated that not only is it technically possible, but it's also not that much work if you're willing to put in the effort to at least hand the keys over and say, hey, you can run these servers. The problem is when a team doesn't want to do that, and then to Chris's point, goes on the offensive to anybody who wants to keep that title alive by shutting down private servers. To Chris's point also, there are some legitimate reasons for why that would want to happen. But fundamentally, Stop Killing Games is not saying release a game, support it indefinitely. It is simply saying if you're going to sell a game and you're going to sell it and market it like it is a product that you were purchasing to own, have an end of life plan. I don't see how in any rational human being can look at that and go, that seems unreasonable to me.
Because that's not what they're selling. That's not what they're selling, is it? They are selling this.
But I still think
that's actually exactly word for word what they're selling. They just spoke about this.
I still think I want whoever Ross is talking to someone about fucking refugees or people starving or fucking homelessness or
okay, but the
houses burning down
becomes a broader conversation about consumer protection, right? It shouldn't have to be either or. Koji alluded to it with his car, right?
I'm being an asshole, but you're
equivalent with Kohji, right? If Kohji bought that car, let's say you buy a Toyota Camry, you make that purchase, and Toyota says, we're going to stop support for pinging the service on the remote start. That makes sense because it's billed as a service. You are paying for the remote start service. But if tomorrow Toyota shuts off that service and your fucking car doesn't work, all of a sudden you realize you never fucking owned the car at all. You just owned the right to ping the server to turn the vehicle on.
I would support Ross in that situation. I would be like, Ross, you go fucking get him. You get him. But I worry that because Ross is having them talk about video games, Toyota is out there fucking people, and they're behind the Ross conversation. That's what I'm worried about.
I think at the end of the day, somebody has to win. And the problem with Stop Killing Games is that it's gotten blown way out of proportion to this massively unreasonable thing where everybody needs to support everything indefinitely. That's not what they're saying. Here's a series of outs. If it's technically unfeasible, you don't need to do it. It's not retroactive. And for the games that have ongoing live service, they're proposing a 12 to 14 month transition plan to see if you can even do it. And if you can't do it, then you qualify as unfeasible, right? This is simply, in the case of the crew, if you have a solo player experience, there is no fundamental reason why that solo player experience disappears from a purchasing party because they shut off multiplayer. It does not make sense. That's what they're trying to protect consumers from. If I make a purchase, give me the purchase. And if you don't want it to be a purchase, you don't want to sell me a product, tell me up front, this is a license. This license can be redeemed at any point. But no, it's buried in the EULA. And the most important part of it is the reason why they don't tell you that up front is because they know if they did, you wouldn't buy the fucking game. They're deceiving you. It's literally consumer deception. And if you rely on black market trends, if you rely on black patterns to sell a game, you shouldn't be selling the fucking game to begin with.
I don't know if I would ever not do a thing, because it says like revocable license. I would just be like, all right, well, I guess they're going to fuck me at some point. Chris, is this us maybe being a little bit triggered because we've seen what regulation can snowball into eventually? To Gnoc's point, maybe it's not today, but it's really easy for these things to get out of control, and then we'll go back to Buxton.
I'm sympathetic to some of what Gnoc is saying. But I also do not trust this regulatory body at all. And I think that Ross is being used, and you have to put it in the context of they also want to ban loot boxes effectively. Yeah. They think that almost every free-to-play monetization practice is a dark pattern. I don't want to endorse this concept of dark patterns because it's so abused by activists. They're pushing these ideas around addiction in video games, which are completely phony. That so video games are so addictive that people can't stop spending in them in free to play, we're told. But then we see revenue going down and users going down. So and only 1% of people ever convert in free to play, but it's so addictive, so they're trying to regulate the internet on a bunch of fronts. I mean, what's funny is they're pushing this Face ID law where they want you to scan your face to use your phone, right, or to use your operating system. So you don't own your phone or your computer anymore by Gnoc standards, because you have to scan your face, but then you own your video game. It's incoherent, right? And I just think that I want the government to get the fuck out of my way and just let me make video games and let people buy them or not buy them, you know? But the other point I would make here is, and I know I'm going long, but you know, let's say that we wanted, Tony made a joke, which is, well, crypto solves this. And it's like, yeah, so we could sell servers and we could sell infra and we could do a decentralized games. I would love to do that. That's why I got into Web3, right? But then you get all the fucking FUD from people about that and how, you know, oh, that's all scam and blah, 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 blah. And so it's just like, I don't know when here, because I would love to build games actually in a decentral. I would love to build decentralized Club Penguin. That would be fucking awesome, right? But then, is the community going to support that, or are people going to FUD that to death? You know what I mean? Like it's like it seems like we tried this and no one really cared.
I just want to jump in and say, and I can't believe that I'm. Well, maybe I can now that I'm an old capitalist, but like I can't believe I'm on the side of the capitalists here. I need Jerry to tell me to stay punk rock, but like to me, it feels like we need an all or nothing approach, and by that I mean, when you buy a movie on, I know all of my points somehow come back to movies, but when you buy a movie on like Apple TV or YouTube or whatever, and those services shut down if they ever do, that stuff's gone too. Like basically anything that you buy on the internet right now is like, you know, 90% chance that it's transient. And we can either say no to all of that or yes to it. And that's the only way to look at it. And even if we say, hey, you can't do that to every piece of software out there that's doing something like this, like I feel like it's almost like communism. It's like good in theory. If everyone adhered to it perfectly, it would probably be idyllic. But like because corruption exists, because humans are inherently humans and do whatever they want, like it's not going to work. You can tell people, hey, don't do this. People are still going to do it and lose their stuff and whatever. And big companies aren't going to give a shit. So like I feel like it's a bit silly to just for people to point their finger at games and be like, no, only you.
Let me ask a question. Why are they not forthcoming with it? Why do they use language like buy? They use language like buy because they know if they use language like rent.
It's sensible.
It's not sensible though. It's not a purchase.
No, it is. It is because you are purchasing something. You are exchanging money. That is buying something, whether it's a service or not. Like the whole point about this for me is really like it is difficult to start a games studio. It's difficult to run a game studio. It's difficult to run a game. It's expensive, and half the time you are spending staying awake at night hoping that you can keep all of these people paid. And when you release the game, everyone shits on it anyway, and then the game dies. And then after that, to be dragged out of your misery and told that you need to support it because 3 assholes won't let that game die, and that you are robbing them because they've paid money for something, which is a service that you failed to hit BMF with, and then your company died. It seems excessive and punitive. And just as you say, like purchase and buy is like an evil thing that the games industry is doing is how they're selling it. Like the whole Stop Killing Games movement is sold back in this way that it is purely for, you know, saving these games that die because they're no longer popular. No one wants this shit. And if you look at it from a creative standpoint, the main thing is you could literally just take your game and when you're about to end it, you could say, you have completed the game. Good fucking luck. And then that's it. The game is over. Right. And, you know, that was the online experience of the game. You can do anything creatively to avoid this law. It just seems completely irrelevant, utterly pointless. Like everything is a subscription. Your car is a subscription. The heating in your seats can be turned on and off. Like you own nothing and you are happy. That is what this is. If you're going to fight this, why fight it in games? I agree. I agree with that. Like it just seems like we have taken
All I'm hearing is 5 people who agree with what I'm saying. They disagree with the place to start. The fact of the matter is you have to start somewhere. At the end of the day, every other industry on the planet is regulated. The fact that gaming needs to be insulated from regulation is
gaming is highly fucking regulated, dude.
Matthew, the fact of the matter is, if you cannot sell a product without being forthcoming about what it is that you are selling, if you hide the fact that you are not actually selling a product, you market it like you are owning a thing. If you're selling physical copies of that thing,
I think we gotta go back.
You don't own it.
I think we gotta go back to it. I think we got to go back to what Kohji was saying, though, because I really think that was the cogent point. Koji's cogent point. You like that? But like, if I think about like when I'm buying something on Amazon, I'm watching American Gangster right now. I just it fell off Netflix, so I'm watching on Prime Video because I bought it a million years ago. But like, in a universe where Amazon goes out of business, like I wouldn't have access. Like that's where it becomes like farcical to think about because like too big to fail. But like in a universe where Amazon goes out of business, I'm not going to have that way to watch American Gangster. And I think that like in the universe that I want to live in, where like Amazon isn't too big to fail because there's so much competition out there that I can choose from a variety of different things. I don't want not Amazons to be able to not exist because they have to think about what happens to my copy of American Gangster if I go out of business, right? But like when I go to Amazon right now, I'm like looking at it on my screen here. Like I can buy it. It doesn't say like rent a license or license this movie. It says buy for $4.99. But like if Amazon just disappeared tomorrow, again, farcical world that we live in, and they had to shut their servers down, like I just wouldn't have access to that anymore.
Fundamentally different. It's not Amazon. It's Imagine. Imagine is the producer of that movie, American Gangster. So if Imagine says we're no longer going to make movies and every version of American Gangster from everywhere all over the internet disappeared at once, that's the analogy. But it's not Amazon going down. It is an individual studio going down.
Well, no, hold on. That's not true because there are copies of games that exist on Steam that also exist other places. So if in your example, if Steam was like, hey, we're shutting down and you lose your whatever, like there's still other ways.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I wouldn't have American Gangster if Amazon shut down. If I
purchasing on Steam, you are purchasing a license to watch that particular or play.
No, but go back to my example. Go back to my example of American Gangster.
You're purchasing an example of American Gangster.
Where do I go watch American Gangster if Amazon shuts down?
This is the problem. You don't own the license to it somewhere else. You own the license to it on Amazon. So if Amazon shuts down, your license has disappeared. But if you owned American Gangster, you could watch it on your microwave if you wanted to.
Well, sure, but that's my point. The thing that I'm doing on Amazon doesn't. Like the button on Amazon doesn't say license this thing until we go out of business, but if you had a different button you could watch it on your microwave, it says buy $4.99. That's what I'm saying.
Which is also a problem. I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm saying the entire language of market it as ownership, but actually just be a rental is fundamentally a bad thing for consumers. And the fact that anybody disagrees with that is insane.
Oh, okay. That's what you're. Yeah, I do disagree with that. I think that's dumb. Yeah, 100%. Right. Like I think that in the spectrum of ownership, right? Like the idea that I have a digital wallet of things that exist until the company goes out of business. Like I think that I might be wrong. I have no data to support this. That like the majority of people buying things on the internet now, like accept that as the truth of what they're buying. And again, I go back to like I think about not the technicality or the principle of what's right and wrong, but more like the world that I want to live in and the consequences of what you're talking about and how that would impact that. And again, going back to like the nuclear example, like if Amazon went out of business or if it became so easy to build distributed systems and acquire customers at scale that we could have a bazillion different video streaming services all competing with one another, as small guys and allowing customers to have many, many different options. I think that would ultimately be a good thing for the market. And so I wouldn't want this what I would consider Byzantine kind of ball and chain example that neither the big companies would adhere to because they're so big they can just pay the fines or ignore it, and the little companies won't be able to exist within because they have to like now solve for this thing that customers aren't even really thinking about, right?
Evidently, consumers don't agree with it, though, right? Because they needed millions of signatures to even bring this to Parliament.
Well, hold on.
French people, though.
I think this goes back to education and like what purchasing something actually means, right? Like we can talk about buying stuff, but we buy transient stuff all the time. Like I buy a concert ticket. I get to see the concert once. Doesn't mean I own the concert forever. I buy a massage. Doesn't mean I get a massage whenever I want. It's an experience, right? And so like, I think that so long as people understand that if I buy this thing on this service, so long as the service exists, then I have it. That's fine. You know, like I bought games on Stadia, you know, and I understood when they were, even before they were like, hey, we're going to shut down. I was like, okay, well, if this service goes belly up, like I lose those games. You know, those are things that players should understand, not that we should regulate away. It just, you know, before you put your money in, these are the consequences. That's all it should be.
I want to get one more take from everybody. Yeah. Let's go over to Chris Heatherley, and then Gnoc, I know you have another take. We'll get one more, and then we'll move on from this. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wish that, as you guys have said, that we weren't being singled out, and if this was a change we were going to make in tech, that we made it for everything and for movies and all this other stuff, and then it would enforce those requirements on everyone and not disadvantage us. Because the thing that I worry about is, even Gnoc had to explain the law, right? And so, amongst us who are a fairly informed group of people, and so, what does that mean? Well, now you got to have a lawyer who tells you what you can do and what you can't do, and not just this regulation, but all the other stuff. And you got to pay that person. And then it creates a liability that's a contingency that investors have to think about when they invest in your company. They have to think about, were these guys going to get sued for not following this thing or that thing or the other thing? And it just creates an overall climate where, and when these VCs and investors, like, they don't always know the letter of the law or the rules or whatever. They just look at it and go like, video games have been regulated to death. I hate that space. I don't want to, I don't want to think about it anymore. And we're already in that quadrant right now. And so we just don't need, I understand that this is a problem for some people, but I'll tell you one last thing, which is when I was at Disney, Gnoc is reminding me of a younger version of myself when I made all of these arguments about why Disney should not have DRM on movies and stuff, right? And why DRM was so bad. And I helped create a system called Movies Anywhere that is that allowed you to own your movies and transfer them from Apple to Amazon to blah, 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 blah. And it was a really cool thing. And we created this technology and they implemented it and nobody uses it. And so the question is, are you gonna enforce all of this regulatory burden on developers when it's a minority of people who actually are the most aggrieved about this?
Gnoc, let's go back to you, bud.
If my good friend Michael Christine was on the show, he would use the word precedent here, as in the need for setting it. And the way that you equal the playing field, Chris, is by setting a precedent. And what I'm hearing is, we don't disagree with the fact that this is something that might be good. We disagree in the fact that it's video games that is taking the brunt of this charge. I think fundamentally, if you're looking at it from a consumer protection law, and even in the example that Kohji gave, when you buy a concert ticket, the terms are clearly defined. You are purchasing a ticket. The show is at this time. The show is between these hours and this hour. It doesn't mean that you can go to any show for that particular artist at any time that you choose to do so. However, when you're buying a game on something like Steam, it is marketed like purchase this game, own this game. At no point is it clear to you that at any point in time, this game can be shut down. It might be tomorrow, it might be 6 years from now. The terms of that purchase and that license are not clearly defined in the purchasing process. That is fundamentally what the issue is here. At the end of the day, if it wasn't a concern to give that information up front, you would give it. But the reason why you don't is because people would churn if you told them outright they do not own that thing. Fundamentally, that's all there is to it.
Kohji, I saw you violently shake your head. Back to you.
Yeah. I mean, I just shake my head because I think it comes down to education. I don't know that anyone expects, especially a live service game or anything like that, to exist forever, right? And I know that like we're talking about some single player experiences here or whatever, but like if there's servers involved, if there's a cost to run a thing involved anywhere in the process after you own it or after you've bought it or you've done whatever, however you want to look at it, then it's ludicrous to assume that it will last forever. Like it's insane to me. And there's no product that exists that I buy that I'm like, this is mine now and it's going to last forever. Yeah. We just don't live in a day and age where that is a.
Half of Americans can't read, Kohji. You think that they're going to understand any of that? That's not a quip. That's an actual stat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude,
no.
like there's a reason
Whether-
that they put the software agreement thing and you scroll to the bottom and you tick it, because they do explain all of those things. They explain that you can't play this on a Thursday.
Don't gaslight
when the
me
moon
and
is
tell me
like
you've
that.
ever even read a single one in your entire
Exactly
life.
what I'm saying is the
Don't tell me.
information is there. Everyone knows.
Yeah, if you
the
didn't
deal.
need to bury it,
The thing is, it's not buried. It's just legally you have to say those kind of things. The main thing that I object to about this is not that it's targeting games and not anyone else. It's targeting specifically games that no one wants, that have died, games that have basically lost the fight, and that studios are basically crippled and at their weakest point. Like, I see how this could work with, you make a game, if you say that game is going to be bought and that game is going to be owned, then that game should also be then exempt from being updated. You know, you buy that game as is. You can run that game forever as is, but you don't get updates. Like, opt out of updates, and then you can stop killing games.
which for the record is an acceptable solution as per the actual movement itself. Again, education.
Damn. Well, that was a lot more contentious than I expected. Buxton still unsatisfied with the resolution of the discussion.
I'm suing over this conversation.
If only we all had the money to sue with lawyers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Buxton, are you saying that you're not an avid player of the Crew still? That's thriving racing game.
Yeah, no. I mean, imagine the horror of missing out on the Division game that no one heard of, or that game that
This
everyone hated
guy's
on Marathon.
game. Yeah, this guy's game fails, and now he's got to go around and give up the rest of his hard time. Thanks.
Personally
pal.
hand deliver a copy.
Yeah, no, you got to literally hand crank the server to keep it on for eternity, while everyone's just giving you shit for how bad your game is. I think it's just mean, right? It's just like, it's mean spirited. If something's over because the company died, let it fucking die. Just let them rest in peace and forget about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. That was a spicy one to get us started, boys. And we're staying in the world of platform risk regulation, whatever you want to call it. Buy or sell Roblox and their new safety pivot. On the surface, this is a child safety story, but the details matter. They're going to be adding essentially age gates for different ages of children. Kids counts from 5 to 8 with chat will be off by default, and access limited or minimal access to content that's exclusively mild, supposedly. Select accounts from ages 9 to 15 are now going to be moderated chat and access up to moderate content. And then beyond that, standard accounts for older users that'll have, unlimited access to anything that's on the platform. This isn't just, vague safety language, which we've gotten a lot of from Roblox in the past. This is truly, a product and policy shift. Underneath that, this may also be Roblox trying to get ahead of a bigger wave of global pressure around youth platforms, age verification, and social media being banned in a lot of countries for 16 and under. That said, Roblox stock has been on an absolute roller coaster over the past 365 days, going from $60 at the start of the year to a peak of $141 in the middle of the year. And now it is fully retraced back to $60 again, 365 days later. So the bullish case from here is that Roblox takes a little bit of pain now to make the business safer long term. The bearish case is that this is the same friction that's going to affect social media platforms, and eventually they could still be regulated on top of that despite making this effort early on. Are you buying or selling Roblox from its current state?
Buying.
I'm buying.
Buying for sure.
Am I buying Roblox or their approach?
The stock from this point.
Oh, fuck, buy.
I'm a mild buy for sure.
I guess it's got to be me. Sell this shit, dude.
Let's go, dude. Tony, I'm going to you for your first take, and then we'll tag in Will's.
Yeah, so I think that this is like I actually literally want to go buy Roblox stock right now as a function of this. I think this is like super responsible. Who knows if they're doing it because they feel responsible or if because they're trying to look around corners. But they've actually already implemented a bunch of this. My kid is locked out of talking to one of her best friends who has like a different birthday than her and looks a little bit younger, and so they put her in the 8 to 9 year old category, and Hazel's in the 10-year-old category, and they can't communicate and play some of the same games together, and they complain about it all the time, and they're figuring out how to do other stuff together until they can reconnect on Roblox. But I think that, I mean, even just that is like an example of Roblox like taking a financial hit to do what, in my opinion, is the right thing, right? Like I think that it's like a good example of anti-corporate greed, again, even if it's forced, or pseudo forced because they feel, because someone gave them a heads up that it's coming down the pipe, or they're seeing what's happening in other countries. It's unambiguously safer for kids now, even just with the little bit of exposure I've had to it. I wouldn't trust, like, I still read through all of Hazel's chats every day, and we have shared account visibility, and I know I have monitor her friends list and all that shit, but I feel like materially better that I know that there's like even more material safeguards around how and who Hazel's interacting with on online. I just think it's really like a really good thing that should be adopted across the board by any company that is housing children in a scenario where adults can also interact with them.
Wills, this stock does not look good, and now they're potentially staring down the barrel of regulation on top of everything else. And Tony's literally saying that his daughter, who loves Roblox, can't play with her friend who is around the same age because they're age gated into different categories. This is not good news. Is this part of why you're selling?
It's a shame because those are all great points, but I'm not that intelligent. So my reasons are completely different. I think that, look, Roblox is cool, and everyone tells me how fucking awesome Roblox is, and it's the best thing since sliced bread, and it's reinventing how, we interact with games, and it's changing the whole gaming market. And I keep hearing that over and over, and that's what I think that $120 price mark is. I think that is Roblox peak hype. It's doing really well. It's driving kids onto the game. And then people also try to tell me, oh, this is how we're going to release games, and even myself, I was on here a couple of weeks ago talking about how Roblox isn't a game. It's a tech platform. And, it's a place where you can release games. Cool. Now you're trying to convince me that Roblox is a playground, like where you can just put your kids and that's how we're supposed to view this company and view their roles and responsibilities. And I know that that's not the main thing that they do. And I know that this is all a side factor of the fact that their main audience is kids. But if I look at it from what my core, like the thing that gets me excited about Roblox is, which is the fact that it's a game creation platform and it allows you to create games and get them out and distribute them effectively. I see it sunsetting. I see Roblox on the downtrend in terms of like the technology that's available for people who want to create games and the opportunity that's coming up now. Right now on Twitter, there's a massive like AI game jam going on. And Sam, this is your wheelhouse as well. I think that the tools to create games are becoming so much better at such a massive rate. I think Roblox is old news at this point on that front. I think that, yes, I think it's probably going to continue to go well. I think the stock might even go up in the next sort of, year or so. But I think long tail in the next 5 years, Roblox is going to become unnecessary because we're going to have better tools. We're going to have better ways of connecting peer to peer that aren't going to need these kind of legislation and this kind of coordination in the way that it does now. So yes, I think it's good for the company short term, and I think Roblox is going to do well. But long term, I think we've got bigger things coming.
Chris, I want to tag you in. I saw you shaking your head, and obviously you're bullish on Roblox. What's your take here?
Oh, insanely. Well, I mean, look, just if you look at where the price is relative to the 5-year, much less the, this past year, like it's a very attractive price. I actually own Roblox. So, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. It's been one of my better performing stocks. I took a little bit of profit at the top. But I may buy again because it's such an attractive. I mean, look, they had two of the, not just the biggest CCU games of the last year, but the two biggest CCU games of all time, of all video games. So they're absolutely on their way up. Now, I do think Wills has a point that in 5 years, is there going to be a web GPU version of Roblox that competes against Roblox and has better rev splits and all that? I'd like to build that, so I think it's a good idea. But don't underestimate just the momentum these guys have. And I talked to Dave who's the CEO, a couple weeks ago, and like he's going all in on AI, and that's just going to open up more creators. And so I think you have to look at Roblox as more like the YouTube or the TikTok of gaming. It's it's got that, it's really oriented around the creator economy, and that's a very, very powerful flywheel. So I just don't see them getting knocked off anytime soon. On the child safety stuff, what I'll say is, Club Penguin was the gold standard in that, and I know that world really, really well and was part of the COPPA 2 regulation. I've looked into this. I think Roblox is doing, there's no obvious thing that they're not doing. Roblox is, has more, it's the safest website you can put your kids on, that's for sure. But it's still a website, right, with other people. And the thing is that having done this child safety stuff before, you're constantly playing whack-a-mole because, pedophiles will show up, and you have systems to find and track those people. And when you find them, you report them to law enforcement. But if you look at where these interactions with kids have gone wrong, if you really investigate it, it's not on the Roblox site. They find a way to connect off the site, and that's where the bad stuff is happening. And so, I know that Roblox is always playing that game of whack-a-mole and working with law enforcement and doing all that stuff. But there's just, if you're looking to find something wrong, you will always find something wrong, right? And that's what a lot of these people who write these stories are doing.
Kohji, you put in the chat that you're actually changing from a buy to a sell. What inspired that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Wills on this one, which is that, all empires fall. And yes, they are at the top at the moment. I'm not a sell because of the safety measures. I mean, I think this goes back to our previous conversation, which is let companies do what they want. And if they want to implement these things, for child safety reasons or because they're getting pressure or whatever, so be it. I mean, I'd rather there be some protections here for children who are playing children's games. But I think that we've seen leaps and bounds with AI so far. And yeah, I understand they have a user base, and right now that's where all the children congregate and whatever. But before there was Facebook, there was Friendster or MySpace or whatever. Things do change, and Roblox is a great sandbox for building things, but an even better sandbox is a thing that you can just say, hey, I want to do XYZ, and then it magically just does that thing near perfectly, right? That's less constraint than you have in some of these systems like Minecraft or Roblox or whatever. And I think that that's where we're going. Even playing with AI now, yeah, it has its shortcomings, and people can laugh at, when it does dumb things, or, the guy who's memeable on social media using the voice chat, right? And it's just oh, how dumb is it? Yeah, but he's using a real-time voice model to prove how dumb it is, not actually typing to it because it could actually provide smarter answers. My point is that it's progressing so rapidly that we're going to get to a point where it can make a game quicker and far superior to anything that anyone could create on Roblox, and we would have a million better experiences. And I mean, people just keep pointing to you, Sam, but I think that anyone who is in gaming touching AI understands some of our days are numbered, man. And I think that stands for Roblox as well.
Oh, it's not jumping in.
I gotta jump in here. I gotta do this. No one is building games with kids. I was at GDC. It's basically a dead market. The main competition that you have for your kids is a 2016 iPad that you probably got and you haven't used. That 2016 iPad has destroyed mountains of games. It's destroyed entire franchises. It's destroyed a lot of physical toys because they are just happy to sit there and watch YouTube of other people doing shit. They are completely happy to do that. It is an industry that used to be worth billions. The primetime adverts when the kids were kind of up early, cartoons in the morning, all of that kind of stuff. That purchasing power has gone. They are YouTube is just sucking them in with adverts. This is the biggest competition. This re-education of children to not create but passively consume is why I'm bullish on Roblox, because it's allowing them to do that. I don't buy this idea that a company with inbuilt distribution, inbuilt creator programs, inbuilt infrastructure is not going to also embrace AI as they have been doing and as they have been getting shit for on timeline and in public. They are going to do the AI. They are, of course, going to do it better than startup. Facebook, yes, it was retired. Everyone else is on something else. Is it still a multi-billion-dollar company? Yes, it is. So I say that no one else is catering really, apart from Minecraft and Nintendo. No one else is catering for kids. Let them do this. That level of safety, to me, looks like prep for the next stage, which is the more freedom in creating anything that Kohji's talking about.
Gnoc, you also were a buy. Tell us why.
Well, why do we got to pick on video games, right? Why do they have to take the lead in this legislation? Why do they got to do it? There's so many other places where video games are, we're not even the biggest player. We're not the biggest concern. Look, wait until the rest of the panel finds out that children's grow up and they become consumers elsewhere. I think at the end of the day, there's no way to look at this and say anything other than buy, right? On the backs of the way that I presented in the last topic, I think that this is a net positive thing. This is a major company taking a stab, regardless of what their motivations are. The fact of the matter is they are taking a step to make things more safe for children online, which is an important thing, regardless of how you look at it, regardless of who's doing it first. It is a net positive thing. So I think they're winning because they're making that step. I think that that's a great thing to look at. Will's brought up a couple of things. AI tooling is getting better. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have the best tech or the best tooling if you don't have any distribution. If all that mattered was the best tech and everybody else would die, Apple wouldn't have made it to the phase at their current lifespan that they are now, right? For a very long time, the first decade of their existence, they had an inferior product, technically speaking, to basically every competitor in the space until they caught up. They built a better social experience around it. They built a better network between their products, and they built a better experience for somebody who's actually using it. That's what Roblox is doing. It doesn't matter if a third-party site has better tooling for creating a game, or if you can do a single voice prompt into Call of Duty. What matters is that somebody can then find and play that game. Roblox has the audience. They're taking steps to make sure that audience is safe. They're making sure that they're keeping themselves out of the crosshairs of legislators, at least to the best of their abilities. And most importantly, they have all of the distribution in the world. You have to be absolutely insane to think that Roblox isn't going to be diving into AI to make creators more effective on their own platform.
Anybody else want to jump in before we move on to the next topic?
All that shit Matt and Gnoc said is absolutely right. And I just want to, I'm going to throw back to the Amazon days. And I really strongly believe that we're going to look back on this and feel like this is a bold statement, but I feel like we're going to look back on decisions like this, and they're going to be kind of like 2-day shipping for live services games that have a bazillion underage users, right? I think that we're going to see some people that didn't do this, maybe the Snapchats of the world, or people that heavily rely on a teenage audience that are not rewarded for their future looking out for the consumers in this case, as someone who was just arguing vehemently against the consumer protections. But it feels like a smart move for a company that I agree with everything you said, Kohji. But the thing that I think refutes literally everything you said, which you said, is that they have all these users. And I think unlocking and empowering those users is going to be the thing that continues to make them succeed and not go the way of the dodo. But I don't think they're able to do that if China or Brazil or half of Europe decides that their kids can't be on Roblox at all.
Okay, real quick, the difference between this topic and the last one, just to refute Gnoc for a second, is they're not being regulated to do this. If game companies are like, hey, gamers actually just want to keep games forever and that's what's going to sell them, then they can choose to just make games that last forever instead of being regulated to do it. And I also think that yes, they have the users, yes, they have the distribution right now, but it's crazy to be like, well, that will last forever, because we've never had examples of people, things with a lot of people in them fail. Wait until you guys learn about the Roman Empire, right? They're a global organization all over the fucking world. They're gone, brother. So I think that it's possible,
I don't
this
think
is
anything
delusional.
lasts forever, but that's not the question. The question was like when I buy Roblox stock at $56, not
Well,
is what's
yeah.
the guy's name, Chris? What's the CEO's name, Chris? Not is David, the CEO of
Dave.
Roblox. Yeah, is that is Dave
Suzuki.
Caesar. Yeah, is
Yeah.
it Dave Caesar Mizuki? No, I'm
But
like,
hold on,
is
hold on.
$56 a good price for this
Yeah.
stock? Yeah, motherfucker. I think they're
I
gonna
would
be
buy
real high.
it and then sell it quickly, once it goes up. I'm not holding it forever is what I'm trying to say. I was a mild buy and now I'm like, I don't know, and so I think that like everyone's talking like there's no way that this could fail. And I think like even just look at the chart. It's insane to be like, well, no, it's fine. Everything's fine.
I don't know, man. I still I look at the Amazon stack after it's split, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is never gonna go back up." And like all my buddies are like, "Man, I'm real glad that."
I'm sorry.
I think, yeah.
No, I just wanted to say before we wrap this up, I've spent the last like 5 minutes just watching the screen behind Sam. I have no idea what's going on. Like we're so cooked. Like we're
Oh
so
yeah,
screwed.
the Lego thing that's going on back
I gotta
here?
say
All of it.
one
There's been
thing.
like 8 different games, and none of them have made a drop of sense to me. Like
The
this is
famous
all
quote,
operating.
Wills, Kohji says, Rome was an international or a global empire. There's a famous quote for the venerable Bade that says, "As long as the Colosseum stands, Rome will stand." Colosseum still standing, baby.
We move on. Good stuff on that one, boys. State of Decay's reveal in 2020, fair or foul? These guys released a trailer for a game 6 years ago, and the actual game, is still not out. It is still not out. For anybody watching the YouTube video, we're playing the trailer now that they played 6 years ago, and then after this, we're gonna play the trailer that was newly released, so you can kind of see the contrast between what was promised 6 years ago and what they're gonna deliver potentially on here shortly. Microsoft put out a full cinematic reveal trailer and announced the game publicly, while the framing and the conversation in the project was basically still a Word document, was the game, meaning the real game was nowhere close to being showable in any kind of concrete way. Studios will say these kinds of reveals are about planting a flag, recruiting talent, setting a tone, testing the marketplace, building excitement, getting VC interest. Players will say, this fucking sucks. I want to play the game in less than 6 years from now. The question is, fair or foul? Is this something that people should be allowed to do? The trailer got 1 million views 6 years ago at a Microsoft reveal event, where they were revealing all the cool upcoming stuff. 6 years ago for the third version of a game. Don't you have enough market research by then to know if people want the fucking thing or not? This thing is absolutely absurd to me. Kohji, over to you.
Fair. This is Web3 before Web3.
Fair.
I mean, I'm gonna say foul because the other two cowards said fair, so I'll take the other side here.
I think it's foul.
Foul.
There's no rule against it, but it stinks.
Let's go to Matthew Buxton first.
Okay, well, I mean, basically, this is some sort of corporate disaster generally. When you do these kind of things, you have high hopes. You have like some, sexy exec with carrying a lot less huskiness than me. They'd probably come out of some really good game. You're thinking, this is going to be fantastic. You've got everyone set up. This is going to be a 2-year project. It's just a reskin. You tell yourself this. You've already got the engine built. And everything goes wrong from literally day zero. The guy has a heart attack and crashes the car. Like, you've lost your level designer because he just had a fit. Someone deleted the drive. God knows what happened here. It could have been locked in some sort of HR nightmare where they had pictures of Bill Cosby on the wall and they were going to events and, they got caught up in early Twitter. Who knows? I mean, no one wants to do this. You obviously, as a business, you don't want to put a trailer out and then never make the fucking thing. It's embarrassing. You have people like us discussing about this shit and how terrible it is and how much it sucks. But I just feel for whatever team was put on this shit to make yet another zombie game and then miraculously fail at doing the exact same shit that you're not really fighting any of the engines to do. So, not being able to make a 3D shooter game, masterclass, really.
Wills, I'm going to you next, and then let's tag in Gnoc.
I think that like 2020 was probably the last year that you could get away with this. I feel like even in the biggest launch of the most recent Game Awards, which was Divinity, everyone was like, "This sucks. I don't care." like, because it was just a cinematic trailer. It looked great, but like I didn't hear anybody who was hyped after that. Like, yes, it's cool. Like, you launched a cinematic trailer. People don't care anymore. You know, we just spent an hour talking about Roblox and how easy it is to get in and activate with those games, and because they're all over YouTube, you can see gameplay, and it's very what you're getting into. You need to make extraordinarily clear to gamers what they're getting into and what their game is, what your game is these days. You don't have the bandwidth. The competition is too high. You're competing against anywhere between 25 to 30,000 other games. You don't have time to, you know, dick tease a little bit, you know, a little bit of, ooh, look what we got here. Ooh, we might have some zombies, or we might have some vehicles. No one fucking cares. You know, it's you have to be much more direct. And you know, I've been doing some experimentation recently, posting on just like game trailers and game clips on Twitter to see what's been hot. You know, what are the cool, and just support indie games as they kind of announce demos and stuff. And every time gameplay isn't the first thing that you see, it doesn't perform as well. So that's not a metric by any standards, but it's kind of been proving that point. People want gameplay. People want to know what they're getting into. You don't have time to waste in this kind of attention economy.
Kohji, I want to go back to you. I know that you've had to, you know, launch some games, sell some expansions, etc. Have you sold anything, you know, 6 years in advance?
No, not quite 6 years, but I do think that like. This is an interesting one for me, because I think it's a bit silly when we're getting mad at them for holding something back. You know, like we would get mad at them if they rushed something out and it was garbage, right? And so like being like, hey, here's some more time. I don't think that's terrible, but I also think that like sometimes things fail or they don't work out. Like I don't hear the panel boycotting Kojima games or Guillermo del Toro for PT not being a full game, right? Like. And yeah, that was like slightly playable, a demo, but they didn't follow through. And it's been years and years and years since they showed that, right? Like things happen. And I don't think that it's like the end of the world. They're not asking you for money when they're showing you this trailer. And so I think that like we have to be a little bit sort of forgiving when it comes to these things, because you know, they're going to try something. Not everything's going to work. And sometimes you have to about face after you've announced it. You know, most of the time this stuff happens behind closed doors, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think we just have to allow for studios to be studios.
Just to jump in really quick there, I think it's very funny that Sam asked the guy making a card game if his opinion on gameplay trailers, because you probably shouldn't do that. But I also think it's like, I think the real question is this a good idea? Like, is it a good idea to release a cinematic trailer like this in the way that they did? Obviously, you know, it's not ideal. And I think that's what we all kind of acknowledge because they were held up with whatever issues. But like, this used to be a strategy. This used to be what you would get. I remember like some E3s, it was literally just a movie without any actual gameplay. And people were hyped on that. That was exciting. That doesn't happen anymore.
Because you thought it was coming next year. You know, you thought it was
exactly, but it didn't take 8 years to make games. Exactly. But now people know it takes 8 years to make games, and that honestly, odds are, if you're showing me a cinematic trailer like that, because of the sentiment around the previous cinematic trailers that have come out and what that's led to, I think that's exactly why you can't take that risk now. It's because of games like Star Wars Eclipse and basically every other Star Wars game we've gotten a trailer for. You know, that's when I see a cinematic trailer, I think I'm never going to fucking see this. You know, my kids are going to play this game. And also to, you know, respect to the king of releasing something and not doing fucking shit with it, Elder Scrolls 6. I remember I have photos of how hyped I was the day that trailer came out. It's been 8 years, Todd. Come on.
Tony, you called this fair. I want to hear from you, then we'll go to Gnoc.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of this, and I was just talking about a lot about the disposability of games and how, you know, people are going to move between these little smaller experiences, and Roblox is going to be king in that world, and yada yada yada. But I think that on the flip side, like, there's something magical about like falling in love with an IP and like wanting to to be as excited as you just described yourself for Elder Scrolls 6, right? And I think that new IPs are competing with, not that State of Decay is not a new IP, but people like I think it might be misguided is what I would say to say that the idea that releasing a cinematic trailer before the game is ready to show gameplay is like not a good strategy in general. I think that as someone who we all know spent time at a studio that released cinematic things and then didn't make a video game, for years and years and years. I think there is something to be said though about the power of being able to rally a community around the lore and the universe that you're building, because games are creative endeavors, right? Like, Kohji might be the only person other than me who like deeply understands the parallel lore on this panel, but like it's cool and it's a big part of why that universe is interesting and fun for a lot of the people who care about it. And I would hesitate to advise small teams who have the ability, like again, like not spending millions of dollars on a trailer, to create a something that feels more cinematic and less gameplay, especially in the age of AI. I would discourage people from thinking that way, because I do think there's a lot to be said for like, hey, this is the conceit, or this is the universe that I want you to fall in love with before you start seeing what the game looks like. And I don't have any data to back that up. I think that is the way that I think about consuming content, and even the way that you describe the way that you consume content. Like it feels like that hate is not the actual, like the opposite of love, right? Like you don't hate Bethesda, you love them so much that you want more of Elder Scrolls 6, right? Like you're just like that is, and that to me is actually like what emotion you want as a creator of a thing in a person. You don't want to exploit that, which is what you're like. You feel like, these fuckers are just tugging on my fucking heartstrings. But I think there's a balance there.
Well, I guess to clarify why I'm outraged on this, because usually I don't take a side on topics, but this time I very clearly feel like this is absolute horseshit. And I think the reason for that is because it feels like they're not announcing a game. It feels like they're doing market testing, but they disguised it as an announcement of a game. And because
you can
of
do that with full game launches now. You can just release games and claim it's a test. Like,
right? Yeah, but at least in that case, you're releasing a game. You have proven that you've put in the work to make the thing. And in this case, they say it was a fucking Word document. Like that says to me that you guys possibly had no intention of ever making this thing, but because it got enough likes on a YouTube channel or something, you go like, oh, I guess we can sell enough copies. Okay, let's do it, boys. And to me, that's insane. Like if you're making a third iteration of a
wait. Isn't that what happened with the Deadpool movie though? Just like enough likes on a YouTube video, and they were just like, "Fuck it, we're gonna do it."
Mobile games are made. They literally run ads for games that don't exist.
Yeah, no. Okay, but
right, and then make the game.
Completely different. You're running ads to people that don't know anything about this game for an IP that doesn't exist, and you're spending money to do it with an audience that is essentially anonymous to you. You're not putting it in front of your exact.
How is that not worse? Like, how is that not infinitely worse?
They're selling this to their audience that is supposed to be taken care of by Microsoft, which is a misnomer at this point.
I love that. So taken care of by Microsoft,
and they're essentially going to rug pull them if it doesn't get enough thumbs ups with their trailer that is them shooting a zombie deer, which tells you nothing about how the game is actually going to be experienced. The whole thing feels fucking ridiculous to me.
So I've done some research here that I think can shed some light on this situation. I also am very bearish on any game that's in development for 6 years because technology changes so much that it's going to be, and culture and gameplay and what people want to play, it's going to be out of date. My Gemini is telling me that the studio was bought in 2018 by Microsoft. And then it said following the acquisition, the studio grew significantly, even opening a second office in Orlando, Florida, to focus on the Unreal 5 engine animation technologies. Then the studio faced a period of internal struggles. They had reports of toxic culture and lack of clear vision, which led to high employee turnover and departure of Jeff Strain. Then who was the CEO? Then you go through some more stuff, and I asked about layoffs. Well, it turns out, they got hit with layoffs in 2024, and then again in 2025. And it turns out that they're having to be supported by the coalition who makes Gears of War and Obsidian. So I think this is a studio. This is a case of a studio that wasn't an Unreal studio that tried to make the pivot to Unreal. and failed at that. And the trailer they made was their aspirations for what they thought they could do with Unreal on PS5, which wasn't even out at the time, right? And they haven't been able to execute at the level that they thought they could. That's what's happened here.
I love that additional research. Shout out to Chris and Gemini. Let's tag in Gnoc.
Sam, are you telling me that you don't appreciate when studios sell something with an indirect language and make you assume one thing while they're giving you something else? Is that what I'm hearing here?
Not 6 years in advance.
If it makes you feel any better, Sam, not that it will. And if you need another reason to hate Ubisoft, which we all do, this isn't even the worst culprit here. Ubisoft Beyond Good and Evil 2 is currently older than Will's.
Oh my God.
That trailer first came out in 2007 or 2008. We still don't have a fucking game, which is incredible to me. Duke Nukem Forever took 5,156 days from original announcement to shipping, and 3 different studios to actually bring that game to life. I think at the end of the day, it's not uncommon for a game development cycle from inception of the game to shipping to take 6 years. I think the problem becomes when inception of the game is aligned with announcement of the game. And that's where maybe some of this have fallen apart. You add in some of the technical issues that Chris kind of walked through. You look at some culture stuff and the fact that there were some layoffs within the studio. It's a perfect shitstorm, right? This was never set up for success. Even between the two trailers, the tone is different. Feels like it's telling a different story. I think that this is a mess. I agree with Kohji. I think if it takes you 5 or 6 years to build the game and that game's great, nobody's going to give a fuck anyway that it took 5 or 6 years. Problem is, most of the time the game's not great. Even more often, that game doesn't even come to life. So I think what we're seeing here is a studio who wanted to test the waters maybe a little too earlier, maybe presented themselves as being further ahead than where they were. I think the key thing we should all take away is we should not allow for studios to be misrepresentative of the things that they are delivering.
Let's go to Matthew Buxton, then we'll probably move on from this one because we got a couple more topics to squeak in. Matt, remind us if you're fair or foul on this, and then go into it.
I said it was foul because, I mean, like, as much as I just love to comedically disagree with Gnoc because he's wrong from a deeply soul level on most things. No, I'm joking. Like, I think it's a bit shitty to do a trailer for something. But I do think that they probably assumed that they were nowhere near as far behind to make this. Like, it was a franchise, they had it. I can see how these stories go. I just feel it's a shame because we see so many of these things that then just get corporated to death. And I think this is what AI is changing, and this is what I'm hoping to see the new genesis of with new types of distribution. Like, these kind of like Dynasty, these Games of Thrones stories that start off with something like this, and essentially they're about as interesting as a full-on match of EVE Online when you actually look through the history and the politics of the game, and at the end of it, nothing gets produced, millions get spent. Like, it's a tragedy that we don't have a better way to make games, is what I'm saying. And especially when you have smaller studios that are wrapped up into bigger studios, it's tough. So, it's foul. Don't write checks that your ass can't cash is definitely the thing. But, people at the time when they write checks are usually richer, younger, happier, and healthier.
They sure are. All right, let's move on, boys. I'm asking you guys to advise me on this next topic. I want to go back to the practical side of business. The broader global games workforce has held up better than the doom narrative may suggest, but North America and in California in particular has been getting absolutely brutalized with sharp job losses, cost of living still demanding really high salaries compared to the global market. So if you work in games, live in North America, and need to make a reasonable amount of money in 2026, what do you guys think people like me should do? Maybe Will's also falls into this category. Been in the games industry for like a few years, have some experience. We definitely want to stay in it. We're in it for a certain reason. But with that being said, we're seeing more and more stuff get shipped overseas, more and more American and Western game studios in general struggle to make it. Regulation on the horizon, AI staring at us in the face. Should we move into an adjacent category? Do we build a different portfolio with different skills? Or do you admit that maybe the best financial decision is to move on to a different category, despite the fact that it's still a $200 billion a year industry? I'm curious, again, what would you advise a person like me or Wills to do in this kind of circumstance? Nobody saying they want to take the wheel on this one first. I can't.
I got it. Sorry. No. Sorry.
Ahead,
Sorry. I was trying to find my mute button. My advice would be start building stuff. It's never been easier to make stuff, and market stuff and bring stuff to market. And like, Wills and I have talked about this a little bit. Sam and I have talked about this a little bit. Like, I would consider myself like not a newbie, like more of a veteran in the game space. And even me, like I'm spending time exploring the tools, and I'm making a little indie game and pushing it out and like putting it up on Steam and spending some time on Twitter and TikTok and writing devlogs and shit. Like, it's just never been easier to be a dev, and more, not even just, I said that's easier is a shitty thing to say. It's never been more possible for like a lay person with no technical skills or art skills to create something. And whether or not the creation is like a game, like, or a piece of media like what you're doing here, Sam, or Wills, what you've been messing around with the game review stuff. I think that there's just like a lot of technology to support doing any and all of that right now. And if I were like trying to go get a job somewhere and I were one of you, I would just be packaging this stuff up and sending it to hiring managers every day, right? Like I would, like, you're super hireable as a marketing person, Sam, just like you have it on your resume, and you could send someone 10 clips of high quality content that you've created for your own brand that makes money, in a heartbeat. And Wills, you're not as attractive, unfortunately, like not physically, but professionally. But similarly, Wills, right? Like you've got an account that you're growing pretty quickly, and that you've like started creating value for people. And like, even that is like, if you're going and looking at like social media jobs or community jobs or marketing jobs, like that's all, that all feels like putting you ahead of the game. And I would lean more into that. And then if you were like, I want to make games, or I want to be on a team like of people that are producing the games or the creative direction and whatnot, then yeah, I would go hit up Remix or Mako or one of these, or any of the million sites where you can go and try to make a video game and prototype something and make the art that you need for it. Like you should just go do that and put it up on Itch, put it up on Steam. And when you go and see a producer job open somewhere, apply, and they all ask for your portfolio, and send them a list of 3 games that you've put up in the last year. That's what I would advise people who are like, I've never worked in the game space before, or I have worked in the game space for 2 or 3 years, or I've been in media adjacent to the game space, so I'm not friends with people who are currently on game teams shipping games. Make something, send it to people.
Love that advice, Tony. Kohji, you currently run a game studio that's working on 3 different games. You've been in a few different industries in your adult life. Curious what your advice would be for somebody like us.
Yeah, I mean, my advice is similar to Tony's, but simpler. Like, like the kids like to say on the internet, you can just do things, and like that is just true. There's no prescribed, this is what works, here's how you can succeed in gaming or any industry, but especially one that requires some form of creative endeavor. Like, as a musician, when I was younger, I would listen, like, read interviews in magazines, because that's how old I am, and be like, okay, well, how did these guys get successful? Okay, let me just like do what they did, or like you hear people all the time like, well, how did you get to where you are? Let me just do that. Like, no, that worked for them at that time, because not only were they skilled or lucky or whatever, but the timing was right for that thing. Like, Parallels is a great example. Like we started as a WhatsApp chat, just being like, let's try and make a game. And then the timing was right. We were introduced to the right people, or harassed the right people online, more accurately, and we're able to build this thing into what it is. But I would never like pull someone aside and be like, hey, if you want to succeed, do what we did. Because it's insane. Like, the whole story to me is still crazy, and it's my life. Like, I would just say, if you care about something, keep trying to do that thing and push yourself forward, put yourself out there, make sure that people have access to what it is you're doing, screaming from the heavens or whatever. But eventually, if it's good enough, people will catch on. And if it sucks, people the internet is not shy about telling you that your shit sucks, So that's it.
Not. So what I'm hearing is boil it down to first principles. Don't follow the exact blueprint, because making the same kind of game from 6 years ago isn't a good idea anymore. But if you say make a cool thing, talk to people online about it, show it off, try to get in the right rooms, like those kinds of things still hold true. Matthew Buxton, Rovio, Jagex, etc. You've probably hired more people than I've ever talked to in my life. Go ahead.
So I'll say one thing about hiring people. In COVID, we had they called it like the massive exodus or something, where the games industry was pumping and everyone changed jobs. Like when I joined the department, we were about, I think, 9 designers. We went down to 4. We rehired up to about 10. More designers than I've ever seen, more than I could shake a stick at. But one of the things I always said to people is, it's like, yes, you can build things, yes, you can do those things, but just don't do it alone. Like one of the advice I give to anyone, and I've done this when I got laid off from a big team, is don't be that guy who immediately goes home, who doesn't have the pint with the team, who doesn't spend that time when the company is wrapping up to sit there. I literally in Jagex spent until my last fucking day, drinking their free coffee, talking to those people, getting those connections, and making sure, because at that time, that sort of thing mattered. LinkedIn mattered. A lot of that still does matter. Your profile is important. Recruiters will look at it. They are still using the old ways. Don't be completely seduced by the SoCal mafia that this is completely different. It isn't. It's an oil tank. It takes time. There are still jobs to get. There are still plenty of the same jobs that were there last year in different places with different arrangements. Many studios are restarting or starting up again. Some of them are starting up from first principles. Some of them are starting brand new and looking at, that tax day money and trying to get that. There's a shit ton of opportunity out there, but not if you're alone. Find your network, find your people, build your presence, or build something. But I would say it starts with the people.
Chris, Heatherley, I'd love to hear from you on this one too. What do you think if you had to sort of start your career over in games today, what would be the first couple of moves you would make?
Well, I mean, it's very real for me because my son is, in the industry, right? And he's fortunately working, but he's got a friend who went to game school who, is around your age or a little younger, who, is very qualified and great, wants to work and can't get a gig, so this is happening everywhere. I mean, the advice and a lot of people reach out to me about this, younger people, and what I always tell them is, partially what Tony said, which is it's never been easier to make a game. And, there's really no excuse. And so what you should do is just make stuff. And the second thing is ship it. And I was saying this to a kid who called me for advice the other day. He was like, well, I've been working on some things. I'm like, ship them, put them on Steam, put them in the App Store, like showing that you can ship something end to end. My son, was nominated for the Apple Game of the Year for this game. They did as their senior project, right? And the thing that I saw with that whole process is what won the respect of people in the industry was not that he had made a game in school, and even before he had gotten nominated for the Apple Award, it was that he had shipped something. Because most kids that they see stuff from, it's just like demo work or it's a vertical slice or something. So shipping something, putting it anywhere, I think makes you a cut above. But the other thing that I always say to people is like, look, this industry is not easy. It's always been hard. You're going to get laid off a couple of times if you go down this route. You've got to be entrepreneurial now. If you're not a self-starter, if you're not willing to make stuff on the weekends, if you're not willing to, get together with some friends and just start working on something, like if you're not that kind of person, if you're not willing to, to live on ramen to make your video game, like, this may not be the industry for you because it's going to get lean sometimes. And really, honestly, like having the mental ability to deal with the ups and downs in this business is it's not insignificant to your overall success. So I would say you really need to assess yourself and say, what do I want? Do I want a stable paycheck and and kind of stability in my life? That's not the games industry. I just think you have to be realistic. And if you're crazy enough and and a masochistic enough, then get out there and start making stuff.
Kohji, back to you.
Yeah, I just want to underline what Chris just said because he's 100,000% correct there. I'll give you a non-gaming example, obviously a movie example, because that's all of my examples. But I have a buddy who, out of film school, just applied for a bunch of grants, started filming a bunch of stuff. One of the things he filmed was a YouTube series, like basically a TV show that him and his friend made because he thought it was going to be funny. That turned into a TV show, and 10 years later or something, has recently been released as a movie. Wow. Major motion picture. That is like, one of the top letterbox movies of the year. He's going to be making a whole bunch of other movies, including the Magic the Gathering movie. Like, whoa, but it just started with him being like, hey, me and my best friend forever are just going to like have a camera guy follow us around and film us doing silly stuff, and we're going to make up these characters, and that's what it's going to be. And that's all it was, And so, like, I think if you have a passion for it and you just do it, and to Chris's point, not only do you do it, but you put it out there and you gauge people's reactions. You learn from the mistakes that you make. You double down on the things that work. That's all you really need to do if you want to make something. I mean, I'm sure the same is true for like viral videos or marketing content or whatever. Like, you just have to prove that you can do the thing.
Yeah, great advice. I would love to ask one more question, and I'll get everybody's take, maybe a thumbs up and a thumbs down so it doesn't take too long. But I'm curious because I think a lot of what I hear around this as well is, well, will it ever recover, or is it going to be like a permanent contraction because of AI, because it's too expensive, because people overseas are getting more and more talented and up to date with using better tools and stuff like that? Thumbs up if you think that North America and Europe are going to rebound in the games industry. Thumbs down if you think that it's like more permanent than it was before. I can't. Buxton, is that a thumbs up? It's a little blurry on my screen. Everybody thumbs up. Wow, yeah, 6 for 6 on thumbs ups. Okay, so positivity. Everybody thinks North America and Europe still have a bright future in gaming. Thank you guys. I think that was an awesome little segment there. Let's move on to the last topic of the day before we get our MVP voting in. Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat, baby. Who you got?
Mortal Kombat, because I love America.
Mortal Kombat.
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter.
I'm gonna go Mortal Kombat to round out.
3-on-3, dude. I love to see it. Mortal Kombat obviously has had a couple of movies in the past, over I think a dozen games now, something along those lines. With that being said, we got 2 blockbusters coming this year, both obviously in the same genre of video game. We've seen video game IP take over as transmedia this year, which is really, really exciting. But these are going to be compared and intertwined for the rest of their lives because of this massive showdown that we have coming in 2026. Tony, you said that you're going Street Fighter. Tell me why. Or sorry, Mortal Kombat.
No, I'm Mortal Kombat. Yeah. I just remember being in middle school and doing somersaults down the aisle after the Mortal Kombat movie during the credits and karate chopping my friends. And so I will never have any other cinematic like fighting game preference than Mortal Kombat. I do like the Street Fighter movies. I think they're generally entertaining. But I think the Mortal Kombat movies, they've just been, I don't know if they've been doing them longer, but it feels like they've got more practice with them. And they just end up being more entertaining for me almost every time I watch one.
Do you think
I'm going to watch both?
A bigger box office success? Do you have confidence that Mortal Kombat is going to make more money?
I do because although I said I like it more because I love America, I think that it does better in the East, in the East than it does in the West. I could be wrong, but it's Koji's shaking his head, but I'm almost positive it does better in like China and Japan than Street Fighter, which is generally not represented by a large group of Asian characters.
I should have double checked this before we launch the segment. I assume though Mortal Kombat has to be rated R, and I think that Street Fighter, based on the trailers and stuff I've seen, I would think it's PG-13. Can anybody validate that? Because I think that would speak to Street Fighter probably making more money.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna make more money if it's PG-13.
Yeah, Kohji, let's go over to you.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said. I mean, even if they're both PG-13 in some miracle, like I think the Street Fighter is a more sort of friendlier option for a wider audience. I also think that there's more star power in the Street Fighter film for promotion purposes, and you know, a movie pretty much lives and dies on their promo. And if you can get famous people talking about your movie, like I like Carl Urban as much as the next guy, but I don't think he's gonna be able to sell. But yeah, Street Fighter also, I mean, it looks stupid. It's a huge swing. But if it works, because I hear it's supposed to be super campy as well, if it works, it's going to work really well. And I actually think that the IP plays better to a, you know, more anime-oriented audience than, you know, than Mortal Kombat would. Also, Mortal Kombat has had way more swings at making cinematic experiences, and all of them have been terrible. That doesn't mean I haven't enjoyed them. But they have all been objectively horrible.
Yeah, and we're watching the trailers now on the YouTube version of this. Lems is saying that Mortal Kombat is rated R. Street Fighter, he says it's PG-13. I'm seeing something that says it's not yet finalized, but it's not coming out till October. So we're going to have about 6 months between these two, which is probably good for both of them, I would assume. Gnoc, I'm going over to you. Who you got from a financial perspective? Who's going to make more money here?
All right, well, I have to change my answer now because the only answer that is correct is Street Fighter. I still think Mortal Kombat's going to be way better. I'm more excited about Mortal Kombat, but Kohji's point, man, there are like 15 people on the cast of Street Fighter that are more famous than anybody on the cast of Mortal Kombat. Not only that, but they've dipped into a lot of different areas. You've got like traditional Hollywood stars like Jason Momoa. You've got some comedians like Andrew Schultz and Eric Andre. You've got actual fighters like Andrew Volkanovski. You've got a bodybuilder and Oliver Richters. You've got WWE superstars and Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes.
You haven't said that 50 Cent is playing Balrog.
Yeah, that was the last piece. And then all of this is before we mentioned 50 Cent is in the movie, right? It's not going to be particularly close. I also think that the cast of I'm looking at this cast and I cannot imagine a world in which Eric Andre, 50 Cent, and Roman Reigns are in the same room. So I want to see what that looks like on the big screen. I think it wins. I think it wins by a large margin. I'm still way more excited for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. Chris Heatherley, I know you've been excited about both of these. Curious to hear your take.
I think they're both going to be good. The word on the early screenings of Mortal Kombat is that it's really good.
Nice.
The first one wasn't so great, but I think this one will be. But I think it's going to be Street Fighter. I mean, if you look at the global potential, it's going to be Street Fighter. The real question is, I mean, it'll be PG-13 for one thing, and then the second thing is it probably has a higher chance of getting into China because the censors there don't like supernatural themes. So I think it probably has a higher chance there, and probably the IP has more awareness, certainly in Japan, but in China as well. So I bet it does better there. And I'm all in for the WWE characters in the cast. Like this, I mean, it's one of those rare things where normally stunt casting is like, oh, I know why you guys did that. You did it for marketing, but it's like, it's great stunt casting and it's also going to be great marketing. So, yeah. I mean, everyone is going to go see this and it's going to be campy, but it's going to be like Kung Fu Hustle campy, which is just like, if they pull off that vibe, I don't know, this could be a massive, massive movie.
Yeah, there's something ingenious too about the fact that they got WWE superstars. You have to imagine closer to October, we're going to see a lot of tie-ins with actual physical events and stadiums full of people and stuff like that, which would lend itself obviously to this being a massive cultural hit in North America. Matthew Buxton, going to you then to Wills.
I mean, I think it's sad for Mortal Kombat making so many bad games. They didn't actually put the movie in a good thing. Like the first Mortal Kombats were amazing, and then they got too realistic. And I really like nowadays they look like a fucking drone video from a war where you see everyone's insides explode in glorious detail.
Oh my God.
And they can't do that in a movie. And also, you know, like the character's not lovable in the way that it's like, oh, isn't it lovely when Sub-Zero does? I mean, we've just aged a little bit too much to like we're playing with this on our memories. I loved Mortal Kombat more than Street Fighter when I played it as a kid, but I'd say Street Fighter is a clear winner just because the ensemble cast. I'm looking. That's a popcorn movie. I'm gonna watch it with my kid. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna laugh, and Mortal Kombat, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm really excited about both. But yeah, Street Fighter is probably going to edge like everything in terms of, it's a shame Mortal Kombat in a different year might have done better.
I also don't feel like we've seen Mortal Kombat. Like one of the most iconic things is the finishers, and the CGI on those has always looked absolutely fucking dreadful, to the point that it actually became a low light of the movie and not a highlight. And I think that we're finally in an era where it could look so sick that like I can't help but share it and
but
talk
you
about
can't kill your cast. Like that's the fundamental thing, that you have all these people and they're going to have a big fight. If every one of them, like someone just dies at the end of the match, you're going to have like that weird walking movie with all the 50s kids that just like continue to walk until they all get shot.
There's enough characters now that they could do like a trilogy where they just kill like 8 per or something. Will's tagging you in.
I think it's crazy to assume that people care what the rationale is. No one gives a shit if like put them in the dimension where nobody dies. Cool, great. Now we can do all of the finishes. Like that's the level of like story plot that I'm committed to when I go to watch Mortal Kombat. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what it takes. Just give me those finishes, like give me limbs flying in opposite directions, give me characters being cut in half. That's what I paid the ticket for.
That's right.
And I think the real problem with the most recent one is that they were light on that. And I think a really good example of understanding why people bought a ticket have been the recent Godzilla movies. I think that, and as much as you can shit on, they're not artistic, they're not, they don't speak to the spirit of Godzilla. The most recent one, Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, that is WWE with giant fucking monsters. There's about 4 minutes of that movie where a monster was not getting suplexed on screen. And it is the most fun I have had in a movie theater in a good while. I remember I was talking about that movie for months. And I think that's exactly what Mortal Kombat needs to be. Street Fighter can, it can sit on its laurels a little bit and be kind of like fun, friendly adventure, look at all the characters. It can like, I think that it can be a lot more like Super Mario Galaxy and like, oh, look, there's that guy. I think they're going to do it better. It looks like it's going to be done a lot better, but it's going to be relying on a lot of that. I think Mortal Kombat needs to be like a visually disgusting masterpiece. And if it can do that, it's going to crush. And that's what I really want.
I got to add one piece of lore here for Street Fighter. And part of the reason why I think it's going to do so well is they were so deliberate in the casting of these WWE and MMA guys. It wasn't just let's bring in Roman Reigns because he's big. They took Roman Reigns, maybe the most iconic villain in the WWE of the last decade, and Cody Rhodes, one of the heroes from the WWE. 2 guys who had a lot of story times. I knew that was going to trigger something from Chris, but 2 guys who have had a lot of story times against each other in the WWE, and you've put them in opposing roles as Akuma and Guile in Street Fighter. Then you look at Volkanovski, who's playing Joe, the only Street Fighter character who's designed to be a kickboxer, and they put in the best kickboxer in MMA history, an all-time UFC legend in that role. It just makes so much sense with the way that they're bringing these people in. It's not just casting big names to cast big names. They're doing a little bit of fan service as well in the casting.
Yeah, I love that. Street Fighter, I started out, I watched the first trailer and I was like, damn, they fucked it up. And then I watched the most recent release and I was like, oh, wait, this actually looks pretty sick. So I'm optimistic now, especially whenever you loop in the cast and assume how much money they must be spending on this. I don't know the numbers, but it can't be cheap. With that being said, let's get our MVP votes in, boys. Will's asking you first, who you got on today's episode? Who's your MVP of the day?
That's going to be a tough one. I'm going to have to give it to Chris today. I think Chris was banger after banger on today's topics.
As per usual, Chris Heatherley, who you got, bud?
I got Gnoc. He's a worthy opponent.
Gnoc standing his grounds early in the episode today. Who you got?
I got Kohji, but I want to give an honorable mention to the face that Chris just made after Will's nominated him.
Kohji, who you picking, bud?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Gnoc, standing his ground while everyone was telling him how wrong he was, and he was wrong, but he still gets MVP for being able to argue the point.
Matthew Buxton, who you picking?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to Gnoc because I loved just the way he argued how we're basically just idiots and that we don't know anything. We've done none of the research, and he is
Wait.
position.
Hold on. If that
all of us are just dumb.
Kohji, don't say it because you're proving my point. If you say finish that sentence, you're proving me right, brother.
No. All I'm saying is if that's what it takes to get MVP, I should be winning MVP every episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, you also have to be wrong.
Tony, who you got?
I got Wills with that Godzilla reference at the end. That was great.
Gnoc, that's 60 seconds of FaceTime for you, bud. What are we plugging?
Nah, we're plugging the rest of this panel here. There's so many people doing cool shit. I don't want to plug what we've got going on. I think if you want to build games, look at what Tony and Sam are building. If you want to play games, look at what Chris, Kohji, and Matt have been doing for the longest time. And then Wills has got a bunch of really interesting things going on. If you want to talk indie games, speak to Wills. I've never met anybody in my life who is willing to die on the hill of the indie title as strongly as Wills will. So I think, listen, at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to have these conversations. It's a ton of fun to come up and spar, and hopefully there's some entertainment value for those of you listening in. So yeah, I'll plug the rest of the panelists here. It was a really fun episode. Honestly, probably one of my favorite episodes of all time.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that, man. And let me reflect it back on you since he won't do it himself. The Digital Collectors Club. If you're into trading things like Pokemon cards, if you're into Marvel Snap and stuff like that, they've also got Origins, TCG. Maybe check that stuff out if it interests you. You know, check out Matt Biamonte, as I never, ever call him. That's going to do it for today's episode. One quick thing. Share us if you like the episode, if you like the show. But next week, it might be changing a little bit. Chris Heatherley been doing some vibe coding and has some very interesting adjustments to make Gamified a little bit more gamified. And I'm super excited for that. We're going to try to implement them before tomorrow or next week's episode. If we can, I'm extremely excited to show you guys what it looks like. Might get a little bit rocky as we sort of get used to it. But the future of Gamified is extremely bright, and it's only going to get more fun from here. And hopefully we'll learn a few things and be less stupid as time goes on. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Unlikely on that last one.